The Ghosts of the Devil's Bridge by ghostcitytours.com/San Antonio. Is San Antonio the most haunted city in Texas? It sure seems like it, as it is a city with many strange occurrences throughout its long-established paranormal history. Research local lore and you'll quickly find out about urban legends like the Donkey Lady, the haunted railroad tracks, and La Llorona. A lesser-known legend, but equally, if not actually surpassing in creepiness, is the Devil's Bridge. No, not the one in Sedona, Arizona, better known as the Devil's Bridge Trail. The Devil's Bridge is straight out of the Old West, right in San Antonio. It's been said that after nightfall, the darkness that surrounds the bridge is so dense that if you shine a light, it will not penetrate more than a few feet out. So be careful if you actually decide to drive over the bridge at night. The Devil's Bridge is located near the San Juan Mission in the 2400 block of Ashley Road, San Antonio, Texas 78214. True evil is believed to lurk on this bridge at night. You may even smell sulfur, which is usually a sign that something demonic is lingering around, waiting. It is also said that if you dare to step up to the foot of the bridge and throw a rock, you'll never hear land. It's almost as if someone or something catches the rock, or possibly the rock disappears altogether. People who have visited the bridge after the sun has set have successfully collected eerie EVPs, which are electronic voice phenomenons, just before becoming overwhelmed by the truly ominous presence that haunts the bridge. Throughout history, bridges have represented both technical and metaphorical achievements, but sometimes these symbolic structures take on a more negative reputation. In some of the more common legends, these structures are associated with demonic stories and are labeled as a devil's bridge. Local lore usually incorrectly dates these bridges to Roman time. One origin story of how these bridges received their name came about from the belief that the creation of these bridges were beyond the capabilities of man and only could have been built by the devil himself, much in the same way as some theorize that aliens built the pyramids. The Devil's Bridge on East Ashley Road in San Antonio may not be a modern marvel, but it is cloaked in mystery. The bridge runs over a ravine that is so deep that if you toss a rock off of it, you will never hear it drop. It is said that the bridge has not only been visited by the devil, but is haunted by other supernatural forces as well. According to one source, back in the 70s, when he was a teenager, he used to explore the area around the bridge. One day he found pieces of pottery and square nails. He then showed the items to his priest at the San Juan church. The priest informed him that Native Americans used to live near the river and would travel to that specific part to retrieve water. The priest then warned him to be careful because in the past, he himself had seen ghosts walking around the grounds around the area where the Native Americans would camp out. One man claims the story of behind the Devil's Bridge on Ashley Road goes back to the Spanish Inquisition. He says there was a pastor and all of his parishioners were killed in the Inquisition. He blamed himself and hung himself from a tree near the bridge. Some have reported hearing the sounds of a creaking rope in nearby trees, and the creaking actually sounds like a swinging rope. A ghost hunter named Joe went out to the bridge one night a few years ago. He allegedly recorded an EVP saying, "I'm here." He also captured another recording of a different voice. Joe had asked the spirit, "Who are you?" The voice responded, "Melvin." Joe wasn't able to record any recordings of a Melvin, neither was I. One grisly rumored haunting at this bridge involves a headless lady who likes to sneak up behind people at night. This account may actually stem from the headless nun who haunts San Antonio's Christus Santa Rosa Hospital. However, there was a tragic accident that did occur on the bridge. It happened around midnight of March 7th in the year 1965. A 41-year-old woman was fatally injured when the car she was riding in crashed into the Devil's Bridge on Ashley Road. She was pronounced dead on arrival at Baptist Memorial Hospital at 12:30 a.m. Her name was Victoria Ann Broussard. Mrs. Broussard was buried on the following Tuesday in San Fernando Cemetery No. 2. She was survived by her husband and 4 sisters, all of San Antonio. Does Victoria's spirit haunt the Devil's Bridge? A death this tragic can only assume so. Regardless of whether or not her soul is still trapped on the bridge, this story serves as a reminder of the danger that the Devil's Bridge holds, especially at night. The Haunted Chinese Graveyard by GhostCityTours.com. If you ever find yourself in the south side of San Antonio, driving down the lonely street of Zarzamora, keep your eyes wide open for a small cemetery virtually forgotten by time. This cemetery is the Chinese Graveyard, also known as the Loma China Cemetery and the Guzman Burial Ground. As you near the desolate graveyard, you'll find perfectly squared white signs posted on trees with red lettering that reads, "No witchcraft" and "Keep out." Another sign warns, "Never mind the dog, beware of the owner." Imaged on the sign is a hand holding a gun. So needless to say, but say I will, the Chinese Graveyard is a place that you enter at your own risk. In a city filled with the weird and downright strange, San Antonio's Chinese Graveyard takes the oddity cake. Legend has it that if you drive to the cemetery at night, parking just near the front with your car completely shut off and windows rolled down, you may have a paranormal experience. Supposedly, if you flash your lights on and off 5 times, voices will begin emanating from the beyond, and some will have seen a tall white apparition floating through the grounds. Not much is known about the origins of the Chinese cemetery. It appears to be a private family cemetery, as many of the markers share the same surname, Guzman. But on the right side of the burial ground, there are a few Chinese named graves. According to research, the property is still owned by the Guzman family, and one of the members of the family, Joey Guzman, even spoke of the burial ground on record in 2009 with Horror Haunt in San Antonio on their ghostly tales. Joey Guzman said that the graveyard began over 100 years ago. And as for the meaning behind the Chinese Graveyard's name, Guzman stated, "Supposedly, a great uncle of mine was seeing a Chinese woman and they fell in love. And according to Guzman, when the family found out about the relationship, his great-grandfather forbade his uncle from seeing his true love." Guzman, the caretaker of the property, said that the cemetery was where his great-uncle and his love would meet in secret. Apparently one night his great-uncle was riding his horse to meet his secret love when he and the horse were killed by lightning. Afterward, he was buried in the family graveyard. It was said that the woman, broken-hearted, later went to his graveside and committed suicide. The family so guilt-ridden that they drove the pair to act in secrecy, ultimately dooming them to death, that they decided to bury the woman alongside her love. Since that day, Guzman said, there is a curse on the graveyard, and that those who continue to see the ghost of a woman will be struck by lightning just as the love of her life was. Perhaps her ghost isn't too keen on her Romeo and Juliet ending. The ghost of the woman is said to sometimes appear as a white mist, while the others have claimed to seen a full-formed, towering 7-foot-tall apparition of an Asian woman. Rhett Rushing, folklorist and former employee of the Institute of Texan Cultures, said of the hauntings that you're supposed to drive to the cemetery facing the big white cross, roll down your windows so that you're exposed to the air, turn your lights off, turn your car off, wait, and then flick your lights 5 times. It is then that the 7-foot female spirit will appear. Most people tear out pretty quickly thereafter, added Rhett Rushing. But if you stay, the ghostly woman may walk over to your car, and once there, reach through your roll down window to physically grab your arm. An unnamed source claims to have gone to the graveyard to put the urban legend to the test. A while back, the source and a few friends had parked just in front of the cemetery and, as was expected of them, flashed their lights 5 times. Then it happened. A tall, ghostly image appeared, turned toward them and began to glare. After that, they didn't even bother waiting to see if the ghost would move in their direction. They'd had enough of their fill of excitement and decided to move on right out of there. One of the most recent ghostly accounts happened in June of 2015. It was past midnight when a young couple drove up to the gates of the graveyard. They sat in the car for a moment before readying themselves to flash the car lights. After the 5th flash, they suddenly saw the much talked about white mist emanate from thin air. The young couple froze, stunned by what they were witnessing. Everything grew eerily quiet. As the mist began to form into a large apparition, the tall spirit began to move towards the couple's vehicle, but then stopped. Within seconds of halting, the spirit vanished, almost as quickly as it first appeared. The couple, still shocked by the sight, remained there for over half an hour before finally leaving. Some believe the source behind the Donkey Lady was of Chinese origin. In this version, the Donkey Lady was attributed as unattractive due to a physical deformity. For this, she was deemed as an outcast and was shunned from the community of the south side of San Antonio. The woman lived in a small old shack near a bridge that bears her moniker, the Donkey Lady Bridge. One night, the woman's house went ablaze while she slept. The fire left the poor woman further disfigured, and she later died from her injuries. It has been reported in the past that her remains were buried in the Chinese cemetery, and on some nights in the cemetery, you can hear the woman screaming as if she was still caught in the fire. One visitor of the Chinese graveyard claimed, "We walked along the side and heard a woman scream. Could this have been the Donkey Lady? Maybe so." Over the years, the graveyard has become a site for conjuring and the practice of witchcraft. This prompted the Guzman family to post a sign explicitly saying, "No witchcraft." However, the sign has done little to stop the practitioners. There have been numerous accounts of visitors being chased away by a group of people dressed in black, appearing to be dabbling in the occult. A couple of the visitors said that it scared the hell out of us and that they haven't been back since. These incidents usually happen past midnight, of course. On those nights when there is a full moon, these spellcasters and black magic fanatics attend the graveyard on a more frequent basis during the month of October as All Hallows Eve approaches. Could they be attempting to summon someone? If you were to visit the graveyard in daylight, chances are you'll find items scattered about left behind from previous rituals. But if you do visit and come across any of these items, leave them. According to legend, bad luck and even spirits can possess these items, and anyone who touches them may soon find themselves cursed. The tiny graveyard is located off 1044-5 South Sasamora Street in San Antonio. This secret cemetery is hard to spot from the road, but near the front gate stands a white cross, seemingly acting as a calling card. But this is not the case, as the signage posted amongst the trees and gate clearly articulate that the Chinese graveyard is private property and you should keep out. This is a warning you should heed. The Gruesome Legend of San Antonio's Haunted Midget Mansion by Spring Salt of TexasHillCountry.com. The Gillespie Mansion in Texas was legendary for its stories of hauntings. Over time, folklore gave the structure the name of the Midget Mansion. It is important to note that this is only the local folklore that rose up about the house, not documented fact. Having said that, the local legend of this house is an intriguing tale. According to legend, a wealthy family moved to San Antonio in the 20s. The husband is said to have been a little person who made a considerable fortune starring in Hollywood films. He moved to San Antonio together with his wife, also a little person, and their 2 daughters, not little in stature. The folklore alleges that the husband took offense to living in homes which were constructed for people of average height, and so he spent an enormous amount of money custom building a tiny mansion. Sadly, the result of his efforts was nothing short of a gruesome legend which continues to be told today. It's important to note that this is only the local folklore that rose up about the house, not documented fact. Having said that, the local legend of this house is an intriguing tale. The home came complete with small doorknobs which were placed lower than normal, low walls for shorter inhabitants, and even smaller toilets. He also had tiny houses constructed about the property, meant for servants' quarters. Although each one of these outbuildings was said to have small features, Gillespie hired housekeepers and servants of average size. According to the legends, it wasn't long before word got out with respect to how abusive the family supposedly was toward their staff, allegedly treating them poorly in addition to making them stay in tiny quarters not designed for their size. Despite the fact that there are 2 theories on how the story played out for the family, the end result for each is still the same: a number of mangled bodies. One version of the legend is that a servant finally had enough and lit the house on fire. Following that, it goes on to claim he attacked the family using an axe, taking their bodies to a closet before committing suicide. When the fire department got the blaze put out, they discovered the bodies and took their best attempt at determining what took place. A second version of this urban legend is that the husband himself went crazy and attacked his own family, slicing their throats and taking them to an upstairs closet. After murdering his whole family, he turned a gun on himself, taking his own life. According to this theory, authorities had discovered the family members weren't dead when the father put them in the closet, having found notes written in blood on the walls and scratch marks indicating their attempts to escape. Regardless of the way the tale unraveled, today the spooky reputation of the so-called Midget Mansion remains intact. In fact, it continues to grow around Lone Star State campfires every summer, as new generations learn what's believed to be the tragic end to the residence. Locals have fanned the flames with eerie details of their own, supporting the wickedness of the legend. Creepy noises, sounds of screams, and figures once spied moving throughout the house are just some of the tales being told about the property. It did become the perfect place for rebel teenagers to try and camp out, hoping or perhaps dreading that something scary would happen. Police had regularly been called to the property for a number of reasons. Much like the legend itself, there are different versions of where the mansion was located. One version maintains that the home was demolished to make room for the Promontory Point apartments located at 4114 Medical Drive. However, others are adamant its location was actually 8139 Donner Place. Despite the variance in stories and even the variance of locations, the legend of this haunted mansion is one of the most gruesome ones to come out of San Antonio.
Woo!